Welcome to Season 10 of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast. This is where we chat with experts in the field, patients who use these devices, physical therapists, and the vendors who make it all happen. Our goal? To share stories, tips, and insights that ultimately help our patients get the best possible outcomes. Tune in and join the conversation. We are thrilled you are here and hope it is the highlight of your day. All right, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up on this episode. So the first part of this episode is our guest, and then the second part of this episode is where Joris breaks down Formnext 2024 and his visit to Germany. I hope you stay for the whole episode. It's going to be a great one. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. My name's Joris Peels, and this is another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast with Brent Wright. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, Joris. I'm doing well, man. I know we're going to get to the Formnext thing after our guest, so I'm really excited to hear more about that. Some of the drama, some of the new things coming down the pike, and you said it was a good time. So as far as
Totally.
just like a really great show, so I'm really looking forward to hear about that. Well, so we had to make sure that 3 different time zones were on. It was me in Eastern Standard Time, you in Spain, which actually just changed, which we figured out, and then our guest is in Greece, and so that's pretty neat. And, you know, one of the things that I love about the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast, it really is becoming global and more people are learning from us. But I wouldn't have expected it. And we're up to 106 countries now. So we just recently added another one.
That's crazy, dude.
So this is the first time we've had anybody from Greece. And this guest, I would say, does a lot of stuff in 3D printing. If you follow him on LinkedIn, foot orthoses, scoliosis stuff, some prosthetic stuff, he seems to really dig a lot of the FDM stuff and definitely looking towards the powder stuff. His name is Eleftherios Samiotis. I think I almost got it.
Yeah, I
So
think
I'm really excited to have
that
him.
was a very good attempt, I think. Yeah, it's good. Well done.
And he said if I couldn't pronounce that, we could call him Lefty.
No,
Yeah.
we're not. Eleftherios. Eleftherios, welcome to the
Eleftherios.
show.
Yeah, but whatever works better for you, and whatever makes the conversation easier.
Perfect. How did you get started in this prosthetics and orthotics world?
Basically, actually, thank you very much for the invite. Actually, when I was in the high school during summertime, always I used to work, somewhere, during the summer months, and I had the chance to work the last 2 summers when I was 16 and 17 for prosthetics and orthotics company, basically to help in the workshop, to do a couple of things. And it was a great opportunity for me to discover this nice world of artificial limbs, of orthotics, of all these rehabilitation devices that these people were doing. So I really liked the whole process of starting by taking measurements and making somebody that has mobility issues to put him back on his feet and back to normal activities. So I decided to send an application to the University of Salford in the UK and to study this job and to become a CPO, prosthetics and orthotist. And this is how everything started. And I started my university in 2000, and I finished my university in 2004. Then I came back in Greece. I worked for about 5 years, including 1 year that we have to do the army services here in Greece, which is compulsory. And after 5 years, then I decided to do my own step, to open my wings and to open OrthoLife and to start my journey as having my own clinic. And now I'm running 2 clinics. One clinic is based in Athens, and I also now have a clinic in Cyprus, in Nicosia. Yeah.
Okay, and so what we're also interested in, of course, here is what is the healthcare system like in Greece? How does it work? Is it like a public system, private system? Is it a mix? What kind of system do you have to deal with? Because that really shapes a lot of practices worldwide, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Regarding Greece, it's actually I would say 60, let's say. So 40%, I would say it's public, meaning that almost 40% of an orthopedic device gets covered from the national insurance system, and the rest is out of pocket. So when something is out of pocket, means that somebody has to pay from himself, or if there is a private insurance or somehow another way, this authority can pay for him. So I would say 40% is public, and 60% I would say is private. In Cyprus, that I'm also doing business now, the full services regarding prosthetics and orthotics are fully covered by the government, 100%.
Okay, that's interesting to me. And then, and was it difficult in the beginning to get started, to get recognition, to get that business started in Athens?
It was a bit difficult because when I started, I was 28 years old. So, of course, I was never been a businessman before. And that was one difficult thing anyway. And also had to understand all the competition in my field, also to understand how the reimbursement system works in Greece, how the whole thing works. What was the mentality of the doctors, of the patients, the expectations? How is the financial field, in the business? So it was a bit difficult, and that's why I started quite low. It was basically me, my partner. We only had one employee this time. It was early days that we had to discover, I would say, more ourselves and how able we could be to become CPOs that will run a business, because it's very much different being a CPO working for a hospital, for a rehab center, or for a company, and very different to work as a CPO on your own business.
Yeah. So what is the actual landscape of Greece? Like, can you give us some population numbers? How much, I mean, would you say there's competition? Like, there are other private companies doing this? Are there people in the government that do this? How does that work?
Yeah, the population in Greece is almost 11 million people, and this business is actually running only on the private sector. So there's no public services that can serve these requests. Now, regarding competition, yes, of course, there is competition. However, I must say that 5, maximum 6 companies doing, 90% of the orthopedic devices in the whole Greece. Also, bear in mind that Athens, that is the capital of Greece, has a population of around 5 million people. So if you reckon that Greece is 11 million population, 5 out of them live in Athens. Yeah, this is it. Cyprus, if you want me also to tell you about Cyprus, Cyprus is about 1 million people. Yeah, and is also private sector. It's basically 2 or 3 companies in Cyprus.
What has led you to be successful? What are the skills or the things you've done to really become successful so far?
I would say a combination of being innovative, be a bit upfront, to offer services that is not just a copy paste from what the others do, something that makes you unique and very different regarding to the other ones. And of course, the service and the product and the quality of work you offer reflects the price you charge. And of course, the know-how and the knowledge, the business, how deep you know what you're doing, and how well you can pass all this information to the customer, to the patient, to the doctor, to the physiotherapist, because you may be very skillful, may know a lot of things, but maybe you don't have the way to pass all this information to this kind of people. So yeah, I would say these are the main things that I'm chasing, I'm looking, and I'm always trying to being better and better every day.
What would you say is, I mean, you've definitely leaned into the additive manufacturing side of things, but you didn't start out that way, right?
Yeah, great. I started the conventional way, the way I used to work. But as I said, when I got up to a point that I understood that I was just making good things, but I was not offering something special, something more unique, something more advanced compared to the others, I said to myself that I have to open my eyes and to look what is coming, what things I have to do to become different, and what sort of materials, ways of manufacturing, new products, new devices I have to offer in order to compete with my competitors that were leading the market at this point of time. And that's why I did actually. And not only just to sell, but also to offer a better product to the customers, also to reduce my lab time, to be better,
One thing that's interesting that I think that like in Greece and even more like the European countries and that sort of thing, not US based prosthetists and orthotists, do have a little bit of opportunity to work in the seating and mobility side of things. And so I know I've seen some of that on your website. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, actually, the special seating devices in Greece, it's a part of business where the prosthetists and orthotists are involved. In some other countries, the special seating departments, different things. I think in the USA it's actually a completely different department. In Greece, we are the ones that were involved in this kind of devices, in this kind of situations. So I was doing seats for a couple of years before starting using 3D printing technology, using expandable foam, taking plastic casts, and using conventional ways. So as when I started, I was treating a lot of children with cerebral palsy. They had scoliosis issues and deformities. So I had requests like this to make special seats. I was also doing, for example, a corset for them. So yes, I was doing seats, but using expandable foam. But now I have discovered that 3D printing really, really helps me to produce seats that are more breathable, more functional. I can differentiate the hardness zones. I can use CAD tools to make things that at the end of the day will offer a seat that will be more functional, breathable, and more practical, washable. I don't know. I mean, the advantage of 3D printing in special seating for me was a big step in my business.
Yeah, and do you think the 3D printing, what were the difficulties in adopting it for you? Did it really take a long time for you to master it? Did you rely on other people? Did you all learn it all yourself?
In the beginning, I relied to other people. I started also making my own experiments. Then I said it was just about time to hire somebody that knows how to design and how to cut better than me. Someone that knows how to use also CAD softwares. I would say it was a bit of a mix, a bit of my personal attempts and the combination of people that I started relying till the point to hire an employee that will be by my side, and we could combine the experience and the know-how I have till now with the knowledge of a CAD designer that can digitalize, let's say, my ideas and what I want to achieve in an orthopedic device.
And right now, like, what printers do you use, and what kind of like software? Kind of what's your workflow a little bit on the printing?
Yeah, basically, we are equipped with 4 printers regarding FDM technology. 3 of them come out of from Denmark. It's from a company called the Created Real, that they have designed 3 different printers for 3 different kind of orthopedic devices. One is an insole maker, makes insoles. The other one is a corset maker that we use it to make in corsets for scoliosis, kyphosis. And the other one is a seat maker that we're making all these big seats for our patients. And we're also using this printer to make the 3D printed wheelchair cushions that we make. We're also having an Ultimaker 3D printer that we're making some part for upper limb prosthetics, some components, and some stuff for our high definition silicone that we make, the inner parts. And we also have one small resin printer that we basically using it for now to print some scans as molds that when we receive an order from another country, let's say. And now I'm in the process of getting one more resin 3D printer to start making more orthopedic devices.
You can now print things, right? You design things, you can actually spend time printing them or printing them better, or you could do a service and then create a custom thing for someone. When you're looking at yourself and your own business, is there one of those three areas you're focusing on more than the other ones, or do you think it's all part of the same opportunity?
I would say it's all part of the same thing. I mean, we spend time on the design, we spend time to print the device, time on the post processing, time to fit the corset, to fit the seat, the insole, really on the device and on the case.
And about like on things like orthotics, right? We're seeing a lot of people adopt that technology. Is that something that you really think that we need new materials for that? You need new processes? Or are you very happy with the solutions that you have at the moment?
Well, actually, one thing that I discovered when I went in Formnext and last week was that the development, the improvement of materials really brings new ideas on how to make orthopedic devices and which technologies to use. So yes, the materials, the ways of manufacturing really made me think that I can produce and manufacture more devices than what I'm doing now. And I will do.
Yeah, I think, and also if you're looking at this, I mean, you expanded from Greece to Cyprus. Do you think that's more like something you're going to keep doing to expand internationally, or was just one opportunity where you're like, okay, we have to do this. This is close by. We can make this other office happen.
Yeah, actually, the most of the Cyprus part is Greek, so it was very easy for us, language-wise and location-wise, to make this step. But it was actually a step for me, not only because it was very easy for all these reasons to make a business in Cyprus, but because it was quite close to the Middle East and to the Gulf countries, as I'm manufacturing orthopedic devices for these countries. So yes, I would say that I see this step as a movement to grow my OrthoLife group, maybe to other countries. I don't know if it will be OrthoLife me as an owner, or will be OrthoLife franchise or whatever. But for sure, I keep my eyes open, my opportunities open. I think that during the end of January, I will be at Arab Health to see friends, to see people, to see opportunities.
All right, Eleftherios, thank you so much for being with us today.
I thank you for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to chat and to share what I can express, from.
And that's a wrap with Eleftherios. Stay tuned. Let's hop in the conversation with Joris and I about Formnext 2024.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it was a really great show. Compared to a couple of years ago, it was more serious. Like, there's not a lot of tire kickers about. It's somebody who's like literally like, I have a EOS P110 and I'm looking for a new pattern for it. Or I'm looking for, I have a large scale FDM system and I'm looking for CF pellets or whatever. It was like really focused show. A lot of visitors, a lot of good energy, and not a lot of like tire kickers, not a lot of like really lofty concept stuff. Much more like, hi, I am selling this thing. Do you need this thing? How can I help you? What are your problems, right? What are you dealing with? What would you like to optimize? What design software would you like to learn to work faster? Or, what workflow software is out there that can help you have fewer failed builds? That kind of stuff. And especially because like CapEx is a bit lower, generally in the worldwide, people are a bit more, kind of cautious, I guess. There's a lot of worry, like Chinese companies are really worried sick about tariffs. Like every single Chinese company exec I talked to was just like, what do you know about tariffs? I mean, I don't know. I don't think anyone can predict what's going to come down the pike there, actually, right? And also the uncertainty about not knowing, right? That it could be one day, it could be 50% tariff from every left-handed thing out of China, and then it cannot happen. So that kind of uncertainty is really very nerve-wracking for Chinese firms in particular. But I think a lot of people, like I think look at something like Mosaic Manufacturing or something, they never would have expected to have a large tariff barrier importing stuff in the United States. So the question is like, would it affect them? So that was the kind of the geopolitical stuff was much more prevalent. Right now, there are laws, more Chinese vendors again, and they're way more professional again. And they're moving way faster than the vendors in the Western thing. So especially on powder bed fusion, polymer and metal, especially metal actually, they're really, a couple of years ago, you just look at these parts and you're like, guys, you're kidding. This is not, this is stuff you bring to the show. What's ending up in your recycling bin, if this is what you bring here, But now the parts look really good. They're making additions and improvements to the machines that actually make sense for people using them. They're getting there, And they're really getting there for people. I know more and more people now that are like, they'll make something relatively simple, like a bike part or something, and they'll really be considering this. They'll really be considering Chinese machines. Whereas after a couple of years ago, nobody would actually literally, people would just make fun of them. But they're moving so quickly. And we're seeing just very interesting propositions. Like, for example, Axtra 3D is like a SLA technology with DLP, really fine lines, really, really sharp edges, and then for materials for molding, and that's really nice. And then they have a silicon from Spectroplast as well, which also could be really interesting for OMP. There's that kind of stuff. The real champions at OMP at the show, HP, they had a lot of really, really awesome stuff that they showcased. They got the point designs hand. And then what I loved about HP is they showed the part with all the other parts. So they showed the actual hand, the final product. And then the HP 3D prints were a part of that. But then there's also other stuff, machine stuff. And I love that. I love that so much. And it was actually literally my favorite booth. So I really like that. And they were really championing the technology and using a lot of really cool orthopedic stuff to showcase their abilities as a company, let's say. They had, what else did they have? Algo. I don't know if you're familiar. That was like a prosthetic socket. Looked really nice. It's like an HP kind of socket. They got Kokochi. That one, the Algo, that one? And then that looked really slick, by the way. That was like a PA11 kind of thing with a TPU on the inside. It looked really slick. It didn't look particularly comfortable, by the way, compared to other stuff I've seen by you, but it looked really nice. Then they had a Kokochi insole. That's again a 5200 they were using the high reusability PA12. Really super cheap material to use at scale and stuff. And they look really slick. They had point designs again, a shoulder prosthesis thing that looked really, really nice as well. Really, really nice integrated part, really complex part, a lot of stuff. Blatchford wrist hand orthosis. Which uses, that's also interesting, uses the Estane TPU and the PA12. A lot of people are using this high reusability PA12. I guess for the economics. They've got a reactor spring AFO, and I just love if it was like a lesson how to do stands for me. They always told you if it was post-processed, what it was post-processed with, what if it was a dimension or somebody else, if it was painted, if it was something else, if there's other parts with it, what it was, the non-additive parts. I loved it. Really, really loved it. I think it's really great for the additive or for the orthosis industry with OMP, what they're really doing. And they showed some really, really good, really good stuff. Like a large part of Naked Prosthetics had a hand, a body-powered hand thing. Super nice as well. Really, really, really good. They had Event Medical, of course, this helmet, the kitty helmet thing. They've been championing that for a really long time as well. And then, partial orthoses and stuff like that for somebody else I don't remember. But they had this kind of meshy, kind of the cool kids meshy structure on the inside of it, So it was nice. It was nice. And it just generally stuff was... What?
I do have a question.
Sure, go for it.
So, like, on that side of things... But you mentioned, and I think this is kind of curious. So, like, you mentioned how focused everything was at Formnext and that CapEx was down. I mean, hardware is hard, right? To sell and that sort of thing. What do you feel, or what kind of sense are you getting from some of these OEMs that have hardware to sell, but it seems like they're also selling some value add type of stuff?
It depends. I mean, hardware is difficult because it's somebody who's betting a lot of their own money on it. It's not a bunch of kids showing up for Instagram, right? And then those kids make noise that attract more kids than everyone's on Instagram. It's different. You have to make an investment that is your money that you're going to give to someone else on a machine tool. And that machine tool may not work because these guys have been around for all of 18 months, right? So that's going to and it's not going to scale like a hockey stick. So it's like compared to other easier stuff, this is very different. So that's kind of the one thing I'd like to say there. What we're seeing on, which I'm advising clients as well, is kind of accelerator type programs where they're saying, what I tell clients to do, I can tell you this, is I tell them, look, partner with a service bureau that has your machine. get some application engineers done, and then take that bike handle or that AFO thing you have already and take it to a part where it's a real product, and then go talk to all these people, right? And then get it implemented, right? And then tell them, hey, you can order 100 of these, no problem. You can then scale and do 1,000 of them, so fine. And then at one point we'll say, hey, you know what? If you're doing 10,000 a month, then okay, maybe you buy a machine, right? But only if it makes sense. And that's just a much better model than before. It was just the guy you would be in touch with was a box salesman. He wanted to sell you a box. And sometimes he'd sell you a box if you don't needed it, or if it was too expensive for you, or if it was the wrong box. And that is just too slow. And it's the wrong way to do it. And if you look at the solution sell that has been going on in other industries, it's been happening for decades. And it's a similar thing. And I tell people, like, the best decisions I've ever done, and the best things I've ever done for clients is tell them no. Tell them, no, this doesn't work for you. No, you can't work. No, 3D printing doesn't make sense for you. And that's just so good for them. And that's because, well, I don't know, I have that kind of like idea that I should do the right thing. And also, it just makes sense. I've gotten, like, a lot of people, I said no to the project even. And then they even gave me a lot more customers. Sometimes just walked away and never made money on them, but that's the right thing to do. And I think we're growing up, saying that it's not about just getting any old revenue. It's about getting the revenue from the guy she's going to buy 100 machines from you, And so that's kind of the thinking of the OEMs guys. Are slowly changing, with some companies not doing it. So Stratus isn't doing this. They used to have a consultancy people, and now they don't. But on the metal side, you see a lot of application development going very deep, and with AOS, in partially as well now also SLM. Velo was great at this, by the way, so it doesn't always work, right? It's not a cure-all, but we're seeing a lot of advanced stuff going on where these guys are really more solution-oriented and really saying, oh, you want a part? That's fine. You just want one a month? That's totally okay. And I think that will really accelerate adoption. And then we're also seeing a little bit more products. I'd like to see a lot more. But a lot more people say, buy a sieve from us now. Buy a filter from us now. And I think that's just much better than trying to sell people $1 million machine and asking them to understand it.
So on that, like, let's just tie that into the P&O side of things, or the prosthetic side of things. Would you say that the right move is, let's say you have a practice, and we'll just use East Point for an example. And it's something that we take a look at the end of the year. And we're like, okay, so what kind of volume do we have? What kind of volume do we have? Where are the dollars going out? Who are we paying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, is there something that can be 3D printed? And then it's like, okay, so if that can be 3D printed, can it be automated, or do we need to bring another designer in?
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to do? But it's not, oh, we need to just buy a machine because we've got this. It's like, we have one device that we need to create, and then we're going to outsource until we see what that volume looks like. We get people used to it. And I think that is the other thing that's very interesting, is specifically, there's a lot of people that want to move into the pediatric AFO space. Well, there's been a company that's been around for 40 years that has the corner of fabrication for pediatric orthotic devices. And there's an expectation of the look because of the style that they've had. They're kind of like the iPhone of phones, right? Everybody's trying to have that kind of look, functionality. And so just because you have a product that could be better, that could be cheaper, doesn't mean that somebody is going to hop on because it's 3D printed. It just looks different. And so there is this change that has to happen, almost evolution that has to happen when you make that. So, I mean, I think what you are saying is absolutely right. Instead of investing in capital that is going to change, like, this technology is changing, why not use the capacity that's readily available? I think it's a good point.
I think everyone should buy a Bamboo Lab now. You know what I mean? If you talk about getting a printer, get one. You can print lots of stuff. You can learn it. You can learn also how annoying the technology is, but how seamless it is. And you started a 3D printing service. I tried to talk you out of that for months, dude. I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. And you're like, no, but don't do it. And it's a difficult way to make money. So you typically have too many people in the service business just like it or think it's cool. So there's always going to be some overcapacity somewhere. Just like in restaurants, there's always too many restaurants because people think restaurants is the coolest thing in the world. And then if you were just looking at a restaurant as a business decision, I don't think you would start a restaurant. So services are kind of like, it's a difficult place to make money. And I think for people to really have to, for an individual practitioner, it's like, where do I play? What are my strengths? Do I like to tinker? Is that the joy of my life? Do I like to tinker with wood or something? Or a carver? I love that. Is that okay, then go for it. If you want to spend time, we talked about this before. I think if you're the client contact guy, Mr. Happy, and everybody loves you, and oh my God, you're so warm, and you just love that moment with that patient, you're just better at that moment. You should maximize your time with the patient. You should try to figure out, like, how do I spend more time in front of people? Or how do I spend more time in front of the right people? That's the key thing for you. Right? And then you should just outsource everything you can, in my opinion. If you're just that guy that's just like the patient guy. But if you're the tinkerer, what part of this tinkering can empower you, and what part can save costs? So I think it's just, where do you play, and where do you want to play, and where are you able to play? A lot of people want to, do you as a practice invest $500,000 in printers? I don't know. If you're an inventing kind of guy, Point Medical, those guys, or whatever, those guys that develop devices, I think the calculus is a lot different. But for an individual practice, it's like, oh, wait, no, are we going to make this our main gig? Is this where we're going to put our money? Or would it be better for us to get a van? I mean, I still love what you guys do with the vans. I think that's amazing. You put the thing in the van, you go to the patient. We don't really talk about that a lot because you think that's normal as hell and all that, but still most people don't do that. You've got a person who we know this person has, it's quite difficult for them to get around. We're trying to help them with that, and we're making them come to us, right? I mean, I think for a lot of people, if they did have $500,000, lease a van, or at least look at how that model works for you. And I think, it's that kind of, especially if we're talking about, like, we always like to talk about the individual practice. Yeah, we know money's tight, and I always see that people are much too likely to buy machines. And much too likely to buy machines when there's no real need for them. So I just try to tell people not to, except for, that little Bamboo Lab thing for like $800. That's a total thing I would suggest you do. Because if you're listening to this podcast, you should buy a Bamboo, because that'll allow you to actually experience what this thing can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of Bamboo, it sounds like they had a pretty big presence at Formnext, right? So what are you seeing from them? I mean, I know there was a lot of drama with Chinese companies, but like, they seem to have a reasonable head on their shoulders, really focusing on, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, software side, not necessarily, I mean, the hardware is amazing, but like the experience side of things.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing there?
I talked to the CEO. I talked to the CEO and their European CEO, let's say Cedric, as well. And I found the down to earthness. Okay, he's a really bright guy. The CEO dude is he's a really bright guy, but he's not arrogant. He doesn't show off. He doesn't want to be the smartest guy in the room. He'll try to learn from you whatever he can, whoever you are. He's super humble, and this is a guy who left DJI. DJI is a giant company. Went out of nowhere to dominate this drone market. Then he left with 200 guys to start a 3D printing company, and they got a lot of money. I mean, but still, it was a big risk. It was like, they were like the gimbal team, internal 3D print team, prototyping, whatever team. They could have just like sat back, not sat back. It's not a place to, be home at 5 kind of thing. But you know what I mean, right? It would have been safer. And they went and did this, and they knocked it out of the park. But he's just really down to earth. And I think that was if you're competing against them, they will come for you. Seriously, there is a relentless ambition. There's also a relentless focus, and that combination between relentless focus, candle power, first off, focus, drive, right, and humility. Yeah, that's a killer combo, because like a lot of people will be really smart. They'll have a lot of ambition, but they'll be really arrogant. They think they're the smartest person in the room, and that kind of makes them kind of dumb. And this is not the case. So these guys are legit, and they're working on stuff they understand. They're working on stuff to grow their business and to grow big. And they did not expect this business thing. They literally were making they were going to make a maker's printer that worked more like a microwave, what they say. And then they all of a sudden had all these companies ordering them and saying, hey, I want my VAT or my sales tax back and stuff like this. And they're like, what? Companies want this thing? So the last couple of years, this got started in 2020. They must have been completely crazy for these guys. But anyway, so that's, I'm more convinced than ever that these guys are really going to, in a smart way, really take over a chunk of business and from everybody. So if we're looking for the O&P machine part of the market, we do have we see that, having the right materials and certification on materials, and that combination with the printer that you can make a skin safe certified thing. Yeah, that's stuff that really will have a lot of value for a long time. All right. But if we're talking about people that want to print in a mall and you want to do orthotics in a mall, you want to pop a cover on them, I would do it a lot with the Bamboo Lab. It's a blazing fast, works really well system. It's not really optimized for production. It's got to have some improvement. But if they just don't do anything really stupid or revolutionary in the next one, just make it better, they have a really incredible device. So I think that's I know we talk about it a lot. Maybe people are listening like, why are these guys always on about this company? Are they getting paid by these dudes? No. It's just the biggest thing that's happened since I've been here, since 2008, 2009. Because we actually have a 3D printer that works for most people. And I see people buying hundreds of them. And I see people buying, in companies, they buy one, then they'll buy 10, then they'll buy 20 more. And then they'll still be cheaper than other solutions,
Yeah, and to your point on the bamboo stuff, they just work, right? So if you're not a tinkerer, which can take up so much time on some of these homemade devices or what have you, and you're just looking to validate your design. So I definitely have changed my stance on and I think you have too. We've a little bit evolved and don't buy a printer to, hey, this printer, when you press print, it's going to give you what you want, probably.
Yeah.
You'll be able to learn from it. And so I think what's neat and now it's affordable. So now you can say, yes, focus in on the design, some of the value stuff, application engineering, that sort of thing. And guess what? For $400 for an A1 or Black Friday special, $299 right now, you now get to hold something that you can print and have it in a few hours. And I think there's just so much value to those two now combining, where you're not wasting time because your filament jammed or something didn't stick to the bed or whatever a big spaghetti nest or whatever. It just prints, and I think that's neat.
And they weren't in the most expensive hotels. They had to drive half an hour every day because they were just they wanted a cheaper hotel. The stand was jam packed. It wasn't crazy. Did a little dinner. It was the low key stuff. I always look at the conference tables. Do they have those giant conference tables that are really expensive? I just know it's going to go south. If they're kind of frugal and they're conserving cash, and I really, really believe in them. So that's good. We talked a little bit already. We had Shade on and stuff. We talked about Form Labs. That 4L thing looks amazing. I hadn't seen it yet. It's a really big. It's huge.
Is it really
big? It's absolutely properly huge. It's washing machine size, kind of approaching washing machine size printer thing. But I think that could be really exciting as well. I thought that was really good. We got an interesting development, cobots. We're seeing more cobot. This is smaller robots. So we had a lot of people make robot arms and put an extruder on it. Now that could be an alternative for scoliosis braces. We talked about this and other things, but really cobots could be a smaller, safer way to do that. And that could be really fast. I looked at that as well. That was very good. A lot of materials companies are withdrawing out of the market. So AM Ford, it was the formerly BASF Materials thing, is having a restructuring. They're going bankrupt, but they're actually kind of is a controlled restructuring thing, I think, where they probably have, they're probably stuck to some deals or some things in particular they have to do. So they're going to go bankrupt, slim down, and hopefully come back stronger, which would be good for the market, I think. I'm not, I don't know who would buy them if they would be available, but if they were just kind of semi-healthy and a little bit slimmed down, it'd be good to have an alternative for certain materials, for powder bed and for certain resins, it's okay. Kimya also kind of threw in the towel. That was kind of semi-expected, as in, I don't know, it's an armor group, the company behind it could afford to do this, but they just didn't see the future. And that's not great because they were really good at compounding and making really specific materials. So that's one of the lemon and Volts of them are some of the people that could have come up with the ultimate spring material for orthosis or something like that. So that's not good for us. For this group of people, Exa3D is either running low on cash again, which is known. People were talking about that it would stop or go bankrupt. That may not be the case. But it's definitely for sale. So that's not good for any kind of Exa 3D print kind of thing. Bella's struggling still, but we knew that already. We don't know what that's going to happen there. So there are a lot of sad news kind of exit kind of things. And there's a bunch of layoffs as well. Stratasys and some other companies have done some layoffs as well. So there's a lot. On the other hand, if you're listening to this and you're a practice or you're a kind of hanger or whatever, and you wanted to get into additive, you want to expand your additive operation, now's the time. There are a lot of people that would never, ever be looking for a job that are looking for a job now. Guys have been doing PA analysis on end-use parts and material extrusion for like a decade or more, Guys have been doing energy return on data structures and really specific, talented guys. And also not in like the youngest kids that just get them out first, but no, some super experienced people that are available. And that's going to be really good for us, I think, or good for the rest of the industry. And it's really good for people that, and even a chain of practice or somebody who wants like a 3D printing person now to develop a product or to, come up with some kind of liner technology or something like that. Now's their chance. But for the industry as a whole, that's just a little bit kind of slimming down. Which is a lot of the companies that are slimming down and are stopping are just not doing very well as well. So, of course, if you haven't achieved the critical mass or you've taken in massive investment and you clearly, it's not going to be paying off anyway, throwing in the towel might be the best thing. So there's a lot of hype leaving the market, but there's a lot of actually people making like real money in this market as well, real money in this business. And that's the difference. It's become more and more normal, but also at the same time, it's become more kind of dependable, boring, but boring in a good way,
Yeah. Well, and I do have a question. So I know there was a little bit of the drama around, and I just want to keep it at an intellectual property sort of thing. And I thought you wrote a great article about that. And I think the bottom line with your article, and if you want to speak to it a little bit more, is if there is a company out there that is going to steal intellectual property and sell it, you really need to step back if you're thinking like, oh man, that's a good deal on a software or a contract manufacturer, whatever, and be like, okay, so they've done this to try to get ahead. What are they going to do with my stuff? So like, exactly. So I think what was the saying that you said? We're really selling on trust.
Yeah, we sell trust. So we sell trust as a business. So the more people that trust additive, the more people that use additive, and the quicker people use additive, the quicker they'll give us money, essentially, and the quicker we'll grow. And if you breed mistrust, you're doing us all a disservice. And we saw this as like the voxel dancers as a company. This is actually, it's really stupid, really, if you think about it. They are kind of like the Chinese super app of 3D printing. It's kind of like an Entopology meets a lot of the stuff in Materialize meets a lot of stuff Autodesk does in one company. Like the Chinese do, right? They just do like, we'll do everything, right? And that, in the case of WeChat and stuff like that, that is like an amazing juggernaut. So, hey, why not try it for something else? And imagine having one software package for all your additive stuff, including a lot of like FEA kind of analysis stuff, right? That's what a lot of people want, right? That's why Fusion's so popular. You don't have to drag and drop stuff into all sorts of different stuff and wait till everything loads for half your life, So, there's a lot of logic there. But the moment you start cutting corners on something that's meant to design rockets and orthopedic implants, that to me is like, come on, we're not in that stage anymore. We're not a bunch of kids anymore. This isn't a slicer for an FDM printer or something. You're trying to do something that is like going to get you a grade 2, 3 medical device. I mean, and if you cut corners in stealing your stuff to power your software, how are you going to like deal with my patient confidentiality or something? If I upload the files to the cloud, and you tell me that it's all secure, how good of a job are you going to do for that? Because you know what I mean? Because two things, like A, you stole IP. B, you got found out, which is even like, right? We're talking about things like a geometry kernel and UI elements, right? So it's either stuff that no one should have ever found out about it, or stuff that is really obvious, and everyone looking at that will say, "Oh, that's exactly the same thing that the other guys are doing." You know what I mean? So I'm like, are you really the guys that are going to make my airplane safer? And that's my my problem with that.
I think with the FormNext stuff, I think it's interesting that how you said it's kind of maturing. The people are laser focused on specific applications, and I think that we're seeing that a lot in the orthotic and prosthetic space. I think that there's still a lot of people, that say, "Hey, Brent, what machine should I buy?" But they don't know how to design, and I think we've just, and I think it's just a matter of education side of things of like, hey, there is, I think the human capital side of things is definitely undervalued. And I'm glad that you brought up the layoffs and such, because I 100% agree that there's some pretty massive opportunities for some people that had some niche abilities, or that have niche abilities that you can bring in and create some differentiation there. So I think that's also something that is really great. And just know that this is probably going to be, while people may love doing the prosthetic and orthotic side of things, the money isn't the same as building rockets or what have you, but you are making a difference in somebody's life. And this could be a great stepping stone. I mean, some of these people are super, super smart, and they can do, what it would take you 2 years, they could do in about 3-4 months. So even if they stayed with you for a year, it's still a great investment. It's obviously your intellectual property, that sort of thing. So I think that's an interesting part. People love additive manufacturing, and they want to try to still keep their hand on the pulse of some of that instead of rather go do something else. And so, if it's an opportunity, I think it's a great way to go.
All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast.
And that's it for this episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us. And until next time, we'll see you on the next episode.